today to give you my May TBR, and I'm very excited about the books I'm going to be reading this month. I've decided to participate in Read with Cindy's Asian Readathon this year, and I have picked out 4 books that I'm going to be reading. So when I was considering which books to read for this, it was actually kind of hard to choose, and that was because I have a ton of books by Asian authors on my library list TBR. Unfortunately, because the library is closed still, I'm not able to get physical copies of these books, so I had to look through what they had available and pick out ebooks or audiobooks or choose from my own shelves. And on my own shelves, I don't have a ton of books by Asian authors. But I did decide to go with Song of the Silk Road by Mingmei, and she is a author who was born in China, and she now lives in the United States. She did write in Chinese, but this book I believe was written in English, so it is not translated. The reason I chose this one to read, other than being so beautifully spring invoking with the cherry blossoms, is that it is a travel story. So this follows a young woman who is living in New York, and she grew up in Hong Kong, and she was captivated by photographs of the desert. And she's suddenly contacted by a long-lost aunt that she didn't know existed, and offered this inheritance, I believe. An aunt she never knew existed will pay Lily a huge sum to travel across China's desolate Taklamakan desert and carry out a series of tasks along the way. So it kind of sounded like an adventure story to me, something set in China and in a faraway place where I can kind of escape to. And so this will be my first Asian Readathon read. For my audiobook selection for the Asian Readathon, I'm reading Stories of Your Life and Other Stories by Ted Chiang. Ted Chiang is a Chinese-American author who lives in Bellevue, Washington State, which is very close to where I live in Vancouver. And he is primarily and singularly, in terms of fiction, a short story writer. And he's won many awards for his short stories. He's also a computer programmer, so he's not like a full-time author, but this is what he does, and does very well. The reason I wanted to read this particular book was because Stories of Your Life is the short story that the film Arrival is based on, and Arrival is probably my favorite sci-fi film that I've ever seen. I just think it's stunning. If you've never heard of this story, it is about a woman who is a linguist, and she is brought on to try to interpret aliens after they made contact with Earth, to try to understand what they're trying to communicate. It is a really compelling story. I'm really interested to read the original that the film was based on and compare and contrast it. Also, Ted Chiang writes science fiction, and I don't read a lot of science fiction, but I'm intrigued and interested in seeing, what type of stories he creates. And so that will be my audiobook, my first audiobook of the month. I'm not sure if I'll have another one, but if I do, I'll just kind of add it in later on. The 4th book that I'm going to read for the Asian Readathon is Rue by Kim Thuy, and she is of Vietnamese descent. She immigrated to Canada and lived in Quebec, and Quebec is the province where I was born and grew up. And so I was intrigued to read this novella because it's based on her experience of immigrating to Quebec and what it was like to live as a Vietnamese immigrant in Quebec. And I grew up in a very rural part of Quebec, and there wasn't a lot of diversity in terms of the types of people that were around me. And so I'm very intrigued to hear this story and to kind of understand her perspective of being an immigrant in Quebec and just what that experience was like for her. So it is a novella, but I believe it's based on her own personal experiences as well. And the fourth book I'm going to read for the Asian Readathon is The Measure of My Powers by Jackie Kai Ellis. Jackie Kai Ellis is a Canadian writer of Chinese descent, and she is kind of a local celebrity in Vancouver. She started the Boku Bakery, which was a highly successful bakery, and she sold that to other owners and to pursue her dreams of living in Paris. And I follow her on Instagram. She has a wonderful Instagram account. She lives part-time in Paris, part-time in Vancouver, and she has an apartment there, and she is a cook as well. She puts lots of food on her Instagram account and just beautiful recipes, and travels quite a lot, and she has a very interesting life, and I'm really interested in reading her memoir about, you know, how she kind of turned her life around. So the process of starting the bakery and becoming who she really wanted to be as a person is all kind of mapped out in this memoir. And I just enjoyed reading memoirs so much in the month of April that I just want to continue it on in May as well. And so those will be my 4 Asian Readathon reads, and I will link Cindy's channel down below. I'm sure you already know about Cindy's channel. She's a very popular booktuber, and I'm hoping that other people will join in as well. I think it's going to be a really, really fun readathon. So the two other books I'm reading this month are my last 2 BookTube Prize reads. One of them is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams, and the other one is The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christy Lefteri. And so very excited to read both of these. I had already started Queenie 2 months ago, and so I paused it for the month of April, and now I'm getting back to it, and we'll finish it up in May. Another book I'm going to read this month is Emily Climb's by Montgomery, and I already talked about this in March because it was on my March TBR, but I did not get to it. And so I'm going to get to it this month and finish up that trilogy of the Emily Starr trilogy from Ellen Montgomery. Very excited to read that. I always love Ellen Montgomery's work. And the other book that I am going to read this month is Orlando by Virginia Woolf. And if you watch my art studio artist vlogs, you probably can connect why I'm wanting to read some Virginia Woolf. But if not, it's going to be kind of a separate side project that I'll probably make another video about, and I will tell you all about that then. So I'm very excited to get to these books. It is certainly an interesting challenge right now to figure out what you're going to read from month to month, depending on what you have access to. I've also been buying a lot more books than I usually do. I'm having a hard time resisting, and I think it's because I can't go into the library and just be with the library books. And so I'm kind of pulling this inspiration from all these books that I'm finding online, and then I'm also supporting local independent bookshops, but it's a bit of it's a weird thing. It's kind of a quarantine symptom for me, I guess. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. I have some more bookish content coming up later on this week, and I hope you're having a really great beginning to your month, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for watching.